Well, good evening, this is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 20th of August. Can you believe it? The 20th of August. The tourist season is just about over up here in Bobcaygeon, and of course I've been really very busy, so I thought I'd do kind of a vlog and a walk around the garden at the same time. So what are we to make of all of this? I don't know about you, but when I look around the world, it seems that everything that I look at is in a state of upheaval and change. That people realize that things are maybe not working as well as they should be, and there is a large level of dissatisfaction out there. And I think that we're actually seeing signs of a system that is unraveling. It's coming apart at the seams, and the reason for that is that the system that we have, that we built up over the last 2,000 years, has been able to survive because it slowed down progress to a manageable level. And so you notice that the things that the government tends to prepare for are things that are within the limits of known dangers and lived experiences. And now we're moving into situations that require quick decisions. You know, we have computers, we have the internet, we have things basically reacting at lightning speed, and so I can literally go on my phone right now. I can go onto the Amazon.com website or eBay or any of them. I can purchase something through PayPal. That in turn will be shipped to my door within 3 or 4 days. That is extremely quickly, and we're becoming accustomed to that kind of speed. And so the slow moving and decision-making process of committee to committee, from subcommittee to overcommittee to review committee to stakeholder committee to I forgot what I was talking about committee, and then restarting the whole process, you know, where you get a pothole filled maybe in 5 years, is just not cutting it with the vast majority of people who now have this incredibly high expectation, not at the speed and the level of service, but also they have an expectation of lifestyle. And there's so many things happening in this world that are changing at lightning speed that the government just cannot cope. It can't make decisions quick enough. And by the time it has made the decision, in the past the problem has usually gone away or it's solved itself somehow. Well, the problems that we're facing today are not going to solve themselves. And a little chart, a couple of charts I'd like to show people, because it really does refute the whole global warming narrative quite nicely. And that is this is the first chart. This is from the Greenland ice core samples. Okay, now we are here. This is us right here. Okay, so we have only just climbed out of the little ice age, and we've reached the mean average, or the moving average going forward. Now you can see here there is the Minoan, the Roman warming, and the medieval warm period were all way hotter, you know, by 2-3 degrees hotter than we are now, and we survived that. Okay, so now I think this clearly gives you an indication of how much the weather fluctuates. As I said, this is a 4,000 year chart. And then what puts this really in perspective is when you look at this 740,000 year chart. Now this chart comes from the Vostok ice core samples, and this is the present average temperature today. Okay, so this is where we are right here, and this tiny little down bit right here, this is the little ice age, which was basically on the heels of an ice age. Now that was 100,000 years before present. But I'd like you to notice the regularity of the downward spikes in temperature. It was almost like they're on a cycle of some kind, and you know, about 100,000 year cycle, and these would be your interglacial periods between ice ages, and these would be ice ages. But I'd like you to pay attention to how much time in our history we have spent below the average temperature of today, and proportionally how much time we spent above the average temperature today. And it really does put it into perspective, doesn't it? I mean, actually, we should be praying for global warming, for goodness sake. And right here, you can see this red line is CO2, and the black line is temperature. As the temperature rises, CO2 increases, it peaks, and CO2 continues to rise for a little while, and then it falls off after the cooling trend has kicked in again. And so it is a trailing indicator, not a leading indicator, and this is what is so confusing. And another thing that's so confusing about all this is that when you talk about CO2, it's almost like you are, you know, insulting God or something. CO2 is a trace of a trace gas in our atmosphere. It is not the driver of our climate. The sun is the driver of our climate. Now, of course, there are many other factors involved. There is the slowing of the Gulf Stream, and that would actually create warmer water moving northwards towards Greenland. And of course we have been going through a warming period, so the ice is necessarily melting and cooling the water coming down from the North Pole, and so you are going to see greater evaporation, and this means larger storms. Now, I'm going to leave a link below to The Great Cloud Mystery by Heinrich Svenmark, and he is a Danish physicist who has studied clouds and the increased and decreased activity of the sun causes cosmic rays or solar rays to hit our planet. And right now we are in a low flaring period. We are being bombarded by way more cosmic ray activity, and you can see this on the NASA charts. And so that has an effect on our weather. It has an effect on our clouds. It creates a dense layer in our clouds, and you're going to see much more atmospheric compression events taking place. But it also affects volcanic activity and earthquake activity. And so there are two situations in the USA which could be an issue. One is the Yellowstone caldera, and it has become recently more active, and the New Madrid fault line. But outside of all of that, all of these different energies coming onto the planet, you know, affect us as human beings as well. And interestingly enough, when we go into these cooler periods, there is usually a change of government, there is a fall of dynasties or kingdoms, and these do correlate to the cooling periods when our situation gets stressed out and our food systems get impacted. And this is why I'm actually preparing my greenhouse and all of my raised beds, which can be quickly converted into mini greenhouses. And I may be able to do another interesting video where I'm going to visit an inventor who has moved into this area. He was instrumental in the designing of the space toilet for the International Space Station, and also the inventor of an incredible vacuum cleaner. And so I was talking to him in my store. He came in for a haircut for the very first time, and he is putting together basically a year-round greenhouse that will run on approximately 10 watts of energy per day and will work in the kind of cold temperatures that we get in Canada. So it's still in the production design process, so whether he'll let me video that yet or not, I have no idea. So we are going to have to change the way in which we look at agriculture, the way we do our business, how we look after ourselves, getting used to the idea that we're all going to have some kind of a victory garden, and we're going to have to supplement, because as a really dedicated gardener, I've been growing my own food for a long time now, and even minor changes in the seasons can have quite a dramatic effect on your growing ability. And this is what our farmers are going to run into, because for years we've been, actually decades, we've been promoting monocropping, and now we have to go the Mennonite way and start multi-cropping. So this is how I see things going forward, and I certainly hope that we can come together and form some kind of community to be more resilient against some of these climatic changes. And we can see now we can really see, because some of the changes that are taking place, you know, where for example in Greece this year it was on fire at one moment, and then they're getting drowned out by these atmospheric compression events where they had a foot or a foot and a half of water falling in a 2 or 3 hour period. The same happened in Japan, massive floods, and there is flooding taking place this very minute in India and Somalia. So the world is changing, and it's going to be a test of how flexible, resilient and sustainable we as a humanity can survive. So let's all think about that, let's all put our shoulders together, let's try and create community wherever we are, and focus on how we are going to be resilient in some of the times which I think we can all see are coming down the track. And you know, I think this is actually, it could be a way for people to come together in a way that they've never had to come together before, except in extreme situations like flooding, for example, on the Red River, where you suddenly see people, neighbours who haven't got along together for years maybe, rubbing shoulders and working side by side, filling sandbags and making sandbag walls in a common goal. And you know, that might not be such a bad thing to find again, and to recreate community in this wonderful province of ours. Okay, well that's about it from me, Hound Dog Steve. You take care, have a great week, and we will talk real soon in between electioneering. You take care now. See ya. Bye.